We're here. We're live, waiting for.
Oh, are we here? Are we live now?
We are
Great.
now. Brian and Apple are getting into their game right now. We're just waiting for people to file in. Happy AshCon, everybody.
Happy AshCon, everybody. Thanks for having me on again, Nick.
Of course. Thank you for joining me. It's an absolute pleasure.
It's Thank you. It's interesting that I'm on the Plaid Hat Twitch tonight because I actually just got a package from You Find People earlier today.
Oh,
I
cool.
had some store credit laying around, and so I ordered. I've never bought an actual Reborn product. I've only had the upgrade set.
Nice.
So now I have a Reborn core set. Not gonna lie, it's mostly so that I can hold the chimeras in the box.
Oh, nice.
That's what I needed for. I was having trouble finding a storage solution. Also, I've ordered several things from Plaid Hat, and when you get a package from Plaid Hat, it still says Colby's name on it,
Oh, yeah.
like it came directly from him. And so I imagine him just covered in sweat in the warehouse, shipping out every game personally.
Well,
So
it
tell me if that's what you. If
it
that's
does
what you're
kind of
doing.
go like that.
Yeah.
Well,
So anyway, shout out to Plaid Hat for sending me my brand new master set box. I'm glad to have it.
you beat me to it getting a Reborn Master set. I still don't have one.
Really?
Yeah, I was just like, well, I don't need one for my collection, and I have so much Ashes stuff just from over the years. Like, I probably even have some prototype cards from like 1.0 Master Set testing. Just I've saved it all in just boxes and boxes, so it's just this like old ancient collection of random stuff. I have my original dice with like stickers, prototype dice with like the dice faces.
What?
Yeah.
Oh man, I would love to see that one day.
uh,
That's really cool.
I'll see if I can find them. I don't know if I have them here or if they're stored somewhere else, but yeah, there's some old stuff there. The basic symbol used to be different when I was testing it. Just like weird random stuff like that. We can maybe
Oh
go
wow.
digging around in that for fun.
Is there a piece of like Ash's official merch that you don't have that you wish you did? Is there like a play mat that you missed or something?
Oh, I never got the Sonic Swordsman and Light Swordsman promos from Gen Con. I never
Those are so
got.
sweet too.
I don't think I even got the second round of Team Covenant promos for Reborn, so I'm missing out on some goodies myself.
Oh man, yeah. I have the Aerodel. Shout out to Flora. I think she's in the chat tonight. She finally scored her Aerodel alt art. That was like
Oh,
a
good.
server wide cheering for her that we were doing. She really needed that thing. So she's a huge Aerodel fan. So
Awesome.
are we ready to jump in with our players here?
I
This is gonna be a
just
great
clicked
game
watch.
tonight.
They look ready to go. We are in
Awesome.
Ashteki here. We got Brian B on the bottom versus Applesith at the top. Very
This is
interesting spread here. James versus Saria.
so I'm making a bet with myself right now. I was actually just deck building earlier today at James with this almost exact dice spread. I found some like cool little combo things in these colors. And so if Brian brought the deck that I was like dreaming up this afternoon to AshCon, I'm gonna feel like a wizard.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be so cool. Brian, for those of you who don't know, is just a legendary Ashes player, and so is Applesith, really too. Applesith has been in Top Cut a lot. He is usually an Echo man. He loves coming up with really creative bypass decks, and so I'm interested to see his take on Asaria. To my memory, I don't think I've seen him play this Phoenix Born. I also can't remember Brian playing James. So these are two great players, but they're kind of operating outside their usual shticks.
Yeah, yeah.
So this could be fun.
I thought I heard Brian talking about mono ceremonial James the other day, and was I think it was Brian. I might be wrong, but I think he was pleasantly surprised with how much mileage you can get out of mono now, and I think looks like this is a bit of a iteration on that with some charm. I wonder what charm has to offer here. There's, of course, the Blood Archer Chant of Transfusion combo, and lots of Fallen you can generate with James. And we start off right there with a Fallen book and Convene with Souls to find Ritualist. So we know some chants are coming.
Yeah, with all the ceremony dice, you expect Ritualist and Chance. I'm interested to see what chance he grabs. Chant of Transfusion is kind of the hot one right now, so we'll see what happens. We've got Body Inversion coming down for Applesmith.
This has been the talk of the town to counter Phoenix attendants that have 1 attack and 4 life, but put a wound on themselves to use their abilities. So a Body Inversion flipping their stats can be a nice efficient kill on one of the most popular allies from the new set.
Yeah, and speaking of popular, Body Inversion has been really popular with Raven for a long time, because Raven is able to instantly kill something that comes in with 2 life or less. And so this may be like a really choice time to be running that combo, the Raven and the Body Inversion. So let's see what happens. Of course, when you're up against Fallen, every single kill could potentially be feeding your opponent more and more fuel for the fire. So let's see if Saria can hold off these zombies.
That's right. So second Fallen book comes down from Open Memories, a classic card from Charm.
Pretty classic.
Letting you get a second copy of something in your first 5. It's an expensive card, but when you're picking the best card you can get, it's the price worth paying. And we see Resummon. You know, this is pretty funny to me. I believe Brian made a constructed deck and wrote an article for us on Plaid Hat that was specifically a Seaside Raven on repeat with Resummon. So he's facing something he has crafted himself at one point.
Yeah, look upon your own works and tremble, Brian. You did this. The other cool thing, we've got, did you see the Nightshade Swallow on the other side of the table?
Yeah. Oh man, I've been buried in exhaustion tokens by these before. They are nasty.
Yeah, we've got some very kind of off-kilter ready spells in these first 5. We finally got a unit on the board. The Ritualist comes out. I think it will be interesting to see whether Brian grabbed his only Ritualist with Convene with Souls, or whether he's got a second one in hand.
Yeah, you can possibly go triple chant with James here. Yeah, first 5ing 1 chant, first 5ing a Ritualist for the second one, and then James's ability for the third. So a pretty slow and steady start. And there's a second Ritualist. So we know 2 chants are down, and a third could be on the way.
Yeah, I mean, you've got exactly enough dice to put the Nightshade Swallow in, and another Chant of Transfusion, and 1 Fallen summon. So you're kind of risking it for the biscuit if you do that, because you're kind of all in on this ally chant plan, and if you don't get a death, then you could kind of stall a little bit. But the Nightshade Swallow is an interesting answer to that problem. There's a lot of people who have Ooh.
All right, the first death happens, and 4 status tokens on the board. A lot of value adding up already.
But, I mean, if your whole plan is built around these Ravens, right, then you're going to have to summon it eventually. So, it's kind of interesting. One of the ways that you can counter Fallen is by, and I apologize, my son hates brushing his teeth. So if you can hear my son brushing his teeth, I'm so sorry. But anyway. Old Salt.
Very Salt cool. Plus a Chant of Transfusion making quick work of the Raven. Ouch.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, without the opportunity to use that resummon, that kind of stings a little bit. Fade Away. Very
Fade Away
cool.
Will remove Old Salt from the game at the end of the round.
Yeah.
So
I think you can see where Applesith's head is at here with the Body Inversion and the Fade Away. He's very concerned about Phoenix Attendant is what seems to be the idea here.
Yeah. So
So
Old Salt has a sneaky 3 life there, so even a Raven couldn't dispatch that with the Prey ability, but you could even go body inversion to get rid of an Old Salt. So
yeah,
definitely
why did you print Old Salt at 3 life, Nick? What were you doing over there?
oh,
You
I
know,
don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. Definitely
everything
making a
gets a
big
recover
impact.
value. Yeah, he's been a really cool card.
Yeah, it was really fun taking a stab at making characters for pre-existing Phoenixborn already, and just thinking about what directions they could go. And I'm really excited seeing Saria here already, because she has probably my favorite narrative coming up when she's gonna be released. It's
That's really cool.
really different for her, because she like would just live in her palace and wait for people to come over, invite them over, and then do the abundance thing. But when the red rains come and destroy everything, that's not going to work so well anymore. So she has to kind of set off on her own journey now. So I hope people enjoy seeing some of the art that she's going to be in.
That's really cool. Well, what you could do is just go ahead and spoil her new unique card and all the cards that are associated with her in the upcoming specs. Is that something that you wanted to do?
Sure,
Uh,
I'll give a little drop here for at least part of Saria's ability. So, or not her ability, but her card. So right now it's an action spell, and it's called Willpower, and it deals damage, and that's all I'll say.
I was completely trolling. You really are a pushover. You know that?
I know how fun spoilers can be, so I like to drop them when they seem relevant. So what do we got going on here? We got lots of Fallen possibly coming, going into round 2 with a very gentle battlefield. Not a lot happening so far in terms of offensive
It is.
pressure.
So at the end of that last round, Applesith took a pass. And I'm sure that he felt that he just didn't have anything that was productive to do, or that by doing something he might be giving his opponent just more ground than he was willing to. But Brian was in a situation where when he saw that pass, he was probably able to look at the amount of dice that had been spent from player to player and determined that it was advantageous for him to go ahead and roll the round over. And so
Yeah.
that's what you saw. And so, Brian's board is a lot more developed because he got to spend 8 dice to, I believe, 5 in the first round. And now you see Widows coming out. Hard to complain about Summon Sleeping Widows and James. That's kind of like a really sweet card for him.
Yeah, those go hand in hand. His Vengeance spell can destroy things, summon things, set up a huge swarm attack. And just in general, Ceremonial is always looking to do stuff when something's destroyed. So Sleeping Widows is just great value, great tempo. And going in for an attack on Saria. And it looks like we got a Sympathy Pain. When Saria takes damage, she can play this to deal damage back to something. And it looks
really
like...
cool.
Where's that damage going?
It went to the Sleeping Widow that did not attack.
Didn't attack.
So, yeah, that's a really smart play. I always love seeing Sympathy Pain out of Saria because it's in her pre-con and she's on the art, and like Sympathy Pain shows up everywhere. It's a really great card, but there's just something really sweet about seeing it in Saria. It's really cool.
Yeah, this is one of the
Dark Reaping.
Dark Reaping changing some dice, so we're thinking long term for this game. We don't want to meta away any cards for the long game. Dark Reaping fixing 5 dice for a sacrifice, and with a big really battlefield of 7, it's pretty interesting seeing the Dark Reaping there, just needing to cycle away for all that Fallen.
Yeah, it does save you from potentially having to meditate, summon Fallen, but getting those sacrifices if your opponent is trying to stall you out by like not killing those units. Dark Reaping can kind of start your engines for you and get tokens on Summon Fallen, tokens on Chant of Transfusion. I was pretty sure that we were going to see that. Against an open board, you kind of want to take that 3 damage.
Bank that damage while you can, because the Fallen are coming and they're going to be hard to get through.
Yep.
One really nice thing about Dark Reaping, particularly in a deck with Widows, is There's a lot of ceremonial sacrifice spells like this, but this is one of the only ways to do it on a side action, which works really well for summoning widows and attacking right away, versus like a Blood Chains or the healing one, Reclaim Soul. Dark Reaping has a little bit of tempo advantage on it.
I never thought about that. I never thought about including There's some cards that you see them so infrequently that you kind of write them off, and Dark Reaping is kind of in that category for me. I don't really give it the time of day, but then you see a player like Brian use it, and you can get inspired, and you can kind of see the synergies that come out of it.
Yeah.
Dreamlock Mage coming down for Saria, yet another card that the community is asking, why'd you print that? Why,
Illusion needed this one.
I love that card, man. It's so sweet.
Yeah, I really enjoy these repeated side action designs because they represent the possibility of really high ceilings of value, which is something that the nature of Ashes doesn't have a whole lot of. It's a very incremental gain and just a battle of inches. But when you have something like this restrictability that you can use an unlimited amount of time, if the conditions are right, it's a really compelling motivation to try and get the most out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dreamlock Mage is for most decks kind of a must deal with card, because you can just get stalled out. I think it'll be interesting. The mill plan doesn't really seem to be super online for Applesith's Saria, but with Dreamlock and Heart's Pool, you've certainly got the start of that if you need to go long.
Yeah, Saria's got a little bit of it
matchup
baked in, and Dreamlock's going to help support that. But everything else that Saria has in play right now is saying all Battlefield.
Yeah, for sure.
We got a couple of
I think
chat
that's
questions.
The way that you. Oh, sorry, haven't even been looking at that.
No problem.
What are they?
So Schmendrick the Magician is saying, will we see a Vengeance Widow swing this game? I hope so. We were talking about that earlier, and
Love
there's
Vengeance.
certainly a lot of Fallen that you can sacrifice to pump up the numbers for that. And Miles Prower, Radio Hour, asking...
That's Flora.
That's Flora, yeah. Our teammate from the team tournament.
Yeah!
That was us three.
Shout out to Flora, always.
Yeah, fond memories with that one. I hope we do another one soon. I haven't checked to see if there's been one posted yet.
She is predictably asking for hints about Aradel's unique.
I'll drop some hints here. Aradel has a ready spell coming because one of Aradel's classic strategies is playing 4 books, so I thought it would be interesting to design a ready spell that wasn't a summon. And by doing that, you kind of have to rethink how you do a traditional Aradel build. And kind of the point of these new unique cards is to see these Phoenixborn in a different way. So it still plays into her love of conjurations over like allies. So it's a ready spell that charges up based on summoning conjurations and then does something with all those tokens. The card's called Rejuvenate.
Well, everybody, it was really good being on the stream with you this week. Tomorrow, I'm pretty sure Plaid Hat is going to replace me with a PR person so they can keep Nick in line. I am getting some information out of you. You are a leaky boy tonight. So thank you, sir.
That's what AshCon's all about. Let's just hang out and enjoy Ashes together,
Generate hype. It's so cool. So we've had a resummon Raven. There's a lot of really good stuff happening on Applesith's board. I think it's just so tough when you let a Fallen player spend 8 dice in round 1 to your 5 and really get their engine going, because like Fallen's whole thing is that it can generate value on value on value, right? And so the board looks pretty even. But against Fallen, you either want to mill them out or you want to like try to get them to go faster. It's an interesting position that he's in because there's just so much potential value on Brian's side of the board.
Yeah, one of the kind of innate weaknesses of Ceremonial is that a lot of its power is ally based. So these Ceremonial decks will run a lot of allies, and those aren't renewable like conjurations are. So mill kind of organically targets the deck of a ceremonial player running a lot of allies. But even though they can recur allies with some of the effects like the dice power, that's going to tax your life total too. So we got the Phoenix Attendant down though, and a Chant of Transfusion locked and loaded. This is representing some possible healing. But the Dreamlock Mage coming in for an attack, trying to stop the Alleviate ability from being able to trigger by putting a wound on it. Phoenix Attendant can only heal if it's at full health. And that gets the guard from James. Makes sense.
I think that's smart there. We've had two really smart guards this round. These players are pretty well on top of it. And by the way, I don't mean to sound at all like Applesith is out of the game. What I don't want to do, though, is just gloss over how much potential power these Fallen engines have when you let them get set up and get going. Applesith's working with a lot of really cool tech over here, too. It's just you really have to be careful how long the game is going against these Fallen and how much you're feeding them and things like that. I think one of the really good upsides for Brian right now is that he hasn't had to spend that many cards. We haven't seen the third Fallen book hit the discard pile yet, and so there's still a chance that he could get the third one online. Both players at the moment have a lot going for them, I think. Nightshade Swallow is going to get eaten.
That's two
and that's
going
to double exhaust. Yeah. Smart. And I think that's really smart on Brian's part, because if you park it on the Raven, like Raven is a huge threat, but you park it there, you can just resummon it. Dreamlock Mage can't do that, so you just go ahead and park the extra exhaustion token there. Both players out of dice now.
All right, looks like we're about ready to go over to the next round. Phoenix Attendant doing their thing, Fallen able to get a swing in for a bit more damage.
Yeah.
Applesith passing. I noticed 2 Orchid Dove books in the discard here. It's going to make it a little bit difficult to get those online for the long game, but I also noticed Essence Druid as a way to get ready spells back. So we could have a possible attrition endgame here if Apple's able to push back on the Horde and go for the long game. I think Saria has a really strong backbone of mill and fatigue set up in this deck. The
Definitely.
Dream Fracture also going to push some damage, lower some dice, pressure those off-board resources in the long game.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential angles that both of these players could go for, actually.
Brian's at the top with an unexhausted battlefield against no blockers. This is an opportunity for James to go big with a Vengeance or Widows. One of the strengths of James right here is a big swing at the top. And
it looks like he doesn't have the combo.
Yep.
Yeah, but he would have spent that Vengeance first if he had like the big combo. So let's see what he does here.
Stepping it back, thinking about it. What should we do here? A big moment of opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, the worst case scenario is you get like 3 damage in. You just cash in on these little Fallen. And that's already pretty good. That gets Saria down to half-life. Just a little cashing in.
Throwing in a couple of them. Nothing wrong with that. Banking 2
And
damage.
Here's the other thing. I don't know this for sure, right? But it's possible he does have a big combo. Like, he could have Vengeance and Widows in hand right now, and he is just deciding to wait and maybe use Vengeance to kill one of these exhausted Fallen instead, there's a lot of potential plays. Super smart there.
Ooh, Old Salt putting the damage down with the body inversion, cleanly handling that Phoenix Attendant before more healing can be generated. That does put the status tokens on James's battlefield, so there's all sorts of blood shenanigans that can be coming.
But if you're Applesith, that's got to feel good, right? Because it really feels like that's what this deck was designed to do, is just look at a full health Phoenix Attendant and say, no, sir.
Oh, yeah.
So you feel good if you got that combo off.
Yeah, you gotta respect the body inversion. That card has always like popped its head up here and there as like maybe this is the time. It was kind of
Yeah.
talked about when Three-Eyed Owl before the errata came out as like a way to go 1-to-1 with it. But even that's not really quite enough. But when we're talking Phoenix Attendant, 2 dice for a 1 die investment, now we're starting to generate some repeat value against those less renewable cards. So love the body inversion here to help get Saria to the end game.
Yeah, and it's interesting here because in very short order, Brian's discard pile has gone to looking a little more favorable to mill. So the card count here at the moment is 18 for Saria and 14 for James. That's cards in deck and hand. And so, you know, 14 cards is not that many when you can hearts pull every round. Oh, it actually, I missed it because I'm yapping. But it looks like Appleseed used Saria. So
Threw a
maybe he's
Blood
getting
Archer
ready
in
to
the
kind of,
bin.
yeah, so Blood Archer was kind of the card that I was thinking about earlier today. I was thinking about how vulnerable he is to Fester and things like that. But then I was like, if you have Transfusion on the board, I mean, Blood Archer suddenly looks really, really good. And so then I started like brainstorming about that. So it's cool to see that Brian was thinking about that too. Of course, Brian was also thinking about Dark Reaping because he's smarter than me, and that's how that goes. So.
M. Bowers in the chat saying, sorry, it needs a seal or two. Definitely in color to play that. Seal can exhaust an entire stack of ready spells, so that would stop the Fallen books from charging up with more tokens, stop the Chant of Transfusions from working. In these grindier games, those off-board control effects like Seal can really turn the tide of a round, because we're not playing super aggressively on the battlefield in this game, so you have the room to play those cards that otherwise you could fall too far behind against heavy aggression to get away with playing them. Mm-hmm. So I do appreciate a slower meta here to see some other cards kind of have their time to shine.
Yeah. Seal has a hard time getting the slot a lot of time, but I mean, it's hard to think of a more worthwhile use of Seal than a bunch of Fallen books. Because one of the things is that the Fallen books never exhaust, right? So every single ally that you kill over the course of the game is fuel on the fire. But if they're exhausted, which they don't do themselves naturally, but you can kind of take that as an opportunity to get allies off the board and kind of reset the game a little bit. So Seal looks really good against Fallen. Here's the Widows.
There's Sleeping
and
Widows.
The board too. Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about using Vengeance to clear out those exhausted Fallen, and if there was ever a time for it, it would be now. But it looks like we're not playing Vengeance and just throwing in the spiders.
Just getting the 4. I mean, hard to complain about that too. I think there definitively, you know that he doesn't have Vengeance in hand because I mean it would just be too tempting
if there
to
was
kill
ever
those
a
exhausted
time.
zombies there. Yeah, that was it right there for sure. It's really interesting. Like Brian is playing to his outs here. Like as aggressive as his deck is, he's consistently leaving a blocker back. Like he's not going to let himself get caught unawares here. Although Seaside Raven could just instantly eat that zombie.
Yeah, that's a good point. Not a ton of presence on the battlefield right now for Saria, but yeah, Raven being one of the fast answers. And we had also seen Old Salt as a way to pick off 1 health units right away. There's an Essence Druid picking up one of those Orchid Dove books. Let's see, we pivoted off of Resummon to start getting the Orchid Doves down. And I think the Orchid Dove is fantastic against the Fallen. A 0-1 will just exhaust the Fallen and clog up James's battlefield for the round. And the Fallen really wants to cycle through those things. So that could be a little speed bump, forcing Brian to figure out how to deal with the battlefield space. And then chipping away at the deck, the big area for Saria to win through. These Orchid Doves are going to discard a card every time they're destroyed. And if there's an empty deck, if we can get enough of those Orchid Doves down, they're going to go right into burn damage.
Yeah, and I do think that... so it's interesting, right? You've got 7 battlefield, for James, and you've got 5 battlefield for Saria. So all he really has to do is go bigger than you and wider than you, and he's going to be able to get chip damage for the rest of the game. And he's been able to use some of this early aggression to put Saria at 6 life already.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if this Orchid Dove pivot is too little too late, because you've only got so many life to work with, and James can just go wider than you. And so I think if Applesith is going to make the mill pivot work, he's going to have to be really canny with how he's defending against these huge James attacks, because he's just got so many bodies at his disposal that he can literally go around you if he needs for 2 or 3 rounds, and there's your 6 life gone.
Yeah,
so
without a big wipe from Saria to, oh my goodness, spoke too soon. There's the vengeance, destroying how many units? 1 fallen, 2 fallen, pumping up the 2 fallen to 2 attack. Gonna send them in.
So you're gonna get 2 more damage right here, no problem. See, I had written off. I was like, "There's no way he has vengeance," but he totally did. But what he was doing, because again, he's smarter than me, is he was waiting until he had a fully tapped board and using it to clear room and just keep generating this value. Just really smart play from Brian here. I mean, we tried to call that vengeance twice, and he was smart enough to hold it back. Really cool stuff.
I trust he knew the right spot more than I did. And Brian's my matchup in Phoenix League this week, so I'm getting a little nervous watching this game.
Well, I preach it enough. Why don't you tell the viewers at home what Phoenix League is, Nick?
Phoenix League is the premier community source for getting into competitive Ashes, organized play. There's all sorts of different levels in which you can participate in the Phoenix League. There's the first five league. On Fridays, you get a pairing, and you just play a game with somebody once a week. The stakes are really low. It's a great way to test out some ideas and just get to know the community and play the game. And then there's also the Phoenix League itself, where you get a competitive pairing, and this is a ranked game on AshTechie. And if you get enough wins throughout the year, you can earn an invite to the final event at the end of the year. So there's a bunch of different ways you can qualify for the finale there, whether it's by winning enough of those league games or winning a pod tournament. So I'm even getting ahead of myself explaining it. There's so many ways to play in the Phoenix League that whatever your taste is, there's a way to enjoy Ashes at that level of commitment. So the first pod event just happened a couple weeks ago, and the way that worked is you're grouped into a pool of 4 players, and whoever you'd play a game against each of them, and whoever came out on top would go to the top cut. And we had
inspired by AshCon.
That's right. Yeah. I like this format a lot. I think it's really personable and approachable, but also still very high level play. I mean, our community just all across the board is bringing the heat. There's so many good players out there. I'm always impressed. Well,
thanks for the kind words about Phoenix League. Myself and Chaos Theory manage that, and we are kind of really, our focus this year is on making competitive play more accessible to players who are new to Ashes. And I mean, I don't know if you can grade what we're doing yet, but what I do know is that we just have had a ton of great feedback from people who are going, hey, competitive has been rough for me for this reason and that reason, and Phoenix League has kind of started to change that for them. And so that's really our goal, is to just make these games of Ashes like this one that are really interesting, intense, and kind of the best that this game can be. We want to make that more accessible for people. And so thanks for the kind words about it. You've seen in the last couple minutes while we've been talking about League, some really cool plays. Just Brian keeping this gas on, man. Like
Fire Archer just putting the burn damage through. Sari's on 2 health left. It's getting close.
Yeah.
But the Orchid Dove trying its best to block its way out of here.
Yeah, we've talked a lot lately about the potential for the meta to slow down, and like how much slower it feels now that we've seen the errata to Brennan and the change to Creeper. Like games have slowed down a lot, right? And then we get into the first night of AshCon and we see Brian just go really fast and just do a lot of damage and be really aggressive with this James deck. And that's just really cool to see. There's so much possibility in the meta right now. I mean, a mono illusion deck just won a major tournament against the best players in the world. And now you've got Brian in AshCon taking James for a spin and being really aggressive in a meta that's kind of, I mean, look at what Applesith brought to the table. He was expecting to be killing Phoenix attendants all AshCon.
Yeah.
And instead he ran into this super fast aggro James.
Now, it is worth pointing out the AshCon meta is slightly modified from the pure current meta. A requirement for AshCon decks is to include at least one card from the new set. So we are going to be seeing Ceremonial in probably every deck unless somebody just goes for Channel Magic. But it's...
Which they could do, couldn't they?
They totally could. That's a basic only card. But yeah, part of AshCon is celebrating each release, so it's an excuse to try out the new cards, face the new cards, and kind of fabricate a meta around what that is. And I think that's where you see stuff like the body inversion coming here. You're like, well, if everybody has to run something from the new set, might as well target it with the best tool in my disposal right now. So very cool meta call from Applesith.
Nick, are you going to be able to keep your composure if you see a Calamity Golem on stream this week?
Oh man, somebody please do it. That's my favorite card from the new set. It's so fun.
This man loves Calamity Golem. We'd be like, Nick, can you test something productive? And he'd be like, here's this Calamity Golem deck again. So we couldn't keep him off, and he just kept playing Calamity Golems. So, man, and I love that card too. I think that thing came out. One thing that I've been really proud of over the last sets is you have really looked at Timmy's and gone, I see you. Like you're creating these big flashy cards like Calamity Golem and Whale that really let you shoot for a ceiling and give you something really fun to strive for in a build. And I just think it's really cool to print those kind of cards. So this isn't quite game because he can block the two highest attack units, but it is going to put Saria down to 1 life. And I mean, all you got to do is recur Fire Archer, and you've pretty much. Oh, except Fire Archer got fade awayed. So
it ain't there. Can James find another one from the deck?
I mean, you have to imagine he brought more than one Fire Archer, and he's only got these last 6 cards. So unless it's in the draw pile, which would admittedly be funny, this could be. This could be it next turn. The other interesting thing is like maybe Applesith's got some healing in his pocket. And it's a shame because, you know, he had a lot of really cool tech on his side. And if he had just a couple more rounds, like he pretty much has James milled. He's only got 1 card left in the bottom of his stack. You know, I think this Orchid Dove plan could have worked out if he just had another round or two. But with Brian going as fast as he did, that's kind of what you run into.
Yeah, it's possible going first 5 Orchid Dove was another route to success in here. It's so tough how much of the game's strength is like in deciding the right first 5, and it's also exciting to want to run back a game and see, oh, maybe if I choose a different strategy, I actually know what will be best against your deck now that I've seen a bit of it. But part of the excitement of closed lists is trying to predict that and figure out, just based on your general knowledge of the card pool or what your opponent's play style has been historically. Love these charm dice coming down to lock down the Fallen to a useless 0 attack.
I know. And I also really respect that, I mean, Applesith is gone. He's got 1 health, and James can just put out so many bodies. But rather than conceding or anything like that, like he's fighting the good fight and he's playing to his outs and trying to stay alive as long as he can. And that's actually a way of being really respectful to the other people in your pod, because blood points are being accounted for as tiebreakers. And so I think Applesith is trying to do the very best he can and put on his best showing, just as a sign of respect to the other players in his pod, and that's really, really cool.
I love that. So that was a Crimson Bomber to clear up some of those blockers. Got the deck to 0. Dream Fracture coming down to lower some dice and get some burn when you can. And here
That Dream Fracture is the definition of a moral victory there. You played it.
And
Good
Brian
job.
B
Awesome.
takes it with James. Good game.
Yeah, what a great game by both players. Man, if you don't run into this hyper aggressive James Fallen, like I really think the Saria deck has a lot of legs in the current meta. You're ready to play the long game with Orchid Dove. You've got so much tech to take care of Phoenix Attendant and Chant. Like both of these players bought really cool decks. It's just it happened to be that the matchup favored the person who was playing more aggressively, and wow, Brian was playing aggressively. So really cool game. Really cool game.
Fantastic play. What a good start to AshCon. I love seeing this. And yeah, James is a awesome ceremonial based Phoenixborn, so definitely appreciating the new set. I think lots of allies to pull from.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's interesting that you bring up how ceremonial themed James is, and he really is. I think he kind of would have been a natural fit for the Red Rain ceremonial set. So what made you go with leaving him for the Divine set?
So this was basically out of necessity. So the first set of Red Rains, I wanted to be as many Master Set Phoenixborn as possible, so just kind of the buy-in to the game is a little bit lower. So one of the Phoenixborn has to be the mono Phoenixborn, so Brennan in this case for ceremonial. Somebody had to be the mono deck because there's only one place for them to go, and then it's like, okay, we'll pull the three of something from the master set. And I went through like all the permutations, and I'm like, okay, if we did charm, if we did nature, if we did illusion, if we did ceremonial, and there were a few factors that went into play there where I was like, I don't know if charm or illusion is really the right magic type to debut the Red Rains game mode.
Yeah,
just kind of the nature of their like controlling and mill elements. I didn't think it was really going to be the best showcase for the game. So ceremonial sticks to the battlefield. It has fun removal, and I had the wound token idea in mind, and kind of based on just the way the Chimera works, I thought there's a good potential for there to be a lot of damage out, and playing around with that could be really fun. And the ceremonial characters also have this very like dreary vibe to them overall. Like Noah and Jessa are very haunting characters, and Cole is the good guy going against total darkness, and Brennan just all the destruction themes and kind of just the coloration I wanted to go for with Red Rains. It felt like ceremonial would be a really cool debut for that. Ceremonial is also like the original magic type, or the first magic in the lore of the game, so it felt like a fitting point to kind of start it again with them.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so that puts James into the Divine set, which is going to be cool. And honestly, I like that because his precon is very ceremonial based right now, just because of how much dice you can put into summoning the Fallen. A lot of times people will take the James precon and bump up the dice to like 7 or even 8 ceremonial just to
you almost have
that
to
Fallen engine. So putting him in Divine kind of will flex the playtest team's design chops and figure out what like Divine James means, because we know what ceremonial James is like.
Yeah, it is really cool. I mean, I just love that this cycle is giving us opportunities to explore different sides of the characters that we love. In particular, because, and I think that a lot of players, I don't know if lament is the right word, but like there's a hunger for lore and for flavor, right? And Ashes, like these characters, the art design pops so much, but other than the art and the occasional lore article, compared to some other games that you might get into, the amount of information on the world of Argaea is pretty sparse, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea of having the opportunity to like double down on the characters that we already know and love and go a little bit deeper instead of just continuing to go wider, I think that's something that players are really responding to, especially with like Change of Heart in Brennan giving
Yeah.
the opportunity for some character development there. I am also I'm on the playtest team, and so I know what's going on a little bit with Saria in the charm set, and I'm really excited for people to see what you did there. It's just we're getting opportunities to like develop these characters more, and I absolutely love that. And if your new Xander unique that you print is bad, then I'll leave. So
I'll need your help on that one. You're the Xander expert.
Yeah, so it's gonna be busted, and just everybody know that, and we're gonna be fine. It's fine. It's gonna be completely broken.
I'm thinking
and
like double earthquake. What do you think?
double earthquake. Yeah, and when you meditate one, you have to tutor for another, and then put that in the discard pile too.
Or it just casts itself. How about that?
I love you. Thank you. Good. It's gonna be a good day for me. So, oh man, awesome. Well, was there anything else that you wanted to hit up or talk about, or are we winding down? You didn't discuss a plan with me, so
yeah. So we're just kind of testing out this first time. I hope on the technical side everything came through okay. This is my first time running a stream, so I just wanted to make sure it works. But yeah, I'm enjoying just chatting about things Ashes, and we were talking we could maybe play a game of Red Rains one day after a stream.
I would love to do that.
Get some other playtesters in for some games. Yeah, so we won't do it today.
I didn't want to commit you to it. But I know that we had talked about that as a possibility, and I had really wanted to play some co-op Red Rains with you on stream after one of these feature games. I remember really vividly during the testing. It was one of my favorite nights of gaming ever. I had been kind of contributing from the side on the Red Rains rule set, but I hadn't gotten an opportunity to really learn it. And I remember my very first full game of Red Rains was a co-op game with you, and you were the one who taught me Red Rains as it was at the time. This was like version 7. This was like version 7 or 8, and I think our final version was like 24. So like this was early.
Man, that's before a lot of big changes.
I know, and I just had such fond memories of you being the one to teach it to me and kind of wrapping your head around it. And I remember our big development that night when we played was we had the battlefield locked at the time. I don't know if you remember that, but like you could only interact with your side of the battlefield at this point in the thing. And I just kept going like, Nick, I really want to take care of this problem for you. Like I want to help you. And that was the night that we kind of realized that being able to attack across the board and help your buddy in the middle of Red Rains was going to really make it come alive. And so I have such fond memories of that night and getting to work on that. And, now I'm getting to teach other people Red Rains and show them what we worked on. And man, it's great. I have so many fond memories associated with Ashes. And I know a bunch of people do. So, one of the first of many times I'll get sentimental this week on stream, but like on behalf of the whole community, thank you for all the heart that you put into this. Like you've created like not just a game that we love and a world that we love, but you've also created a really safe community to be a part of. And there's just no words for how valuable that is nowadays. And so I'm looking forward to the rest of this week, and we love what you do for the game, man.
Thank you so much. That's really meaningful to hear. I mean, I came just from this same community. Like I'm not here from the outside. I just have always loved the Ashes community and what Isaac started with this game. And like, I remember early on when like I was getting the play group going in my local community and just being like, man, I will do whatever it takes for this game. And it's so great to be carrying the torch here and having this community to go along for the ride with. I mean, I spend so much of my time with the playtest group. It's like every day, it's like this is my community. I spend so much time with everybody around here. So it's so great to just be chilling and loving it with everybody.
That's awesome. Hey, one thing I've never asked you before.
Yeah.
Were you day one with Jessa? Like, were you playing Jessa out of the 1.0 core set?
Yeah, that's kind of the deck that made me be like, oh, this game is something new and special. I had never like run that like system of like wound tokens and blood puppets and like the I always thought Screams of the Departed was cool, where I'm just like, oh man, you can just like always go for the win with that. And yeah, I loved the way that deck played. And oh, how little we knew about Ashes when we were playtesting the core set. I mean, Fear used to be free. It used to be
Yeah,
free.
the thing that stuck out to me was like Enchanted Violinist, and it actually I was looking back through Board Game Geek. Somebody had mentioned the thread, and I was digging for it, and so I found some like old Ashes commentary, and I didn't realize how early in the life cycle of 1.0 Ashes that Enchanted Violinist got errated away from being free. You
Yeah.
guys realized that mistake pretty rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah, it got patched
Yeah,
with an
free
OT
bodies.
kit like right away. Oh yeah, I remember just playing that machine gun of a card on like the very early TTS tournaments or leagues. I can't remember who was organizing that or what the structure was, but I remember those really early games. Oh, it was so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, 1.0 Enchanted Violinist, it was free. I think it had one or two life. Either way, it was too much. And it just, you could spend a basic to deal a damage to something whenever a card was discarded. So you just pew pew and mill everything, and you got it completely for free. And it was a terrible idea, is what it was. But, they didn't know then. So I remember I had a 1.0 core set and played with just a group of buddies around here, and
Mm-hmm.
we even discovered Enchanted Violinist very quickly, and it was crazy what you could do with that just out of the core set. So so that brings me to like errata.
Yeah.
Like we just errated cards for the first time. Like how have you felt about that? And like have you been paying attention to the games and like how all that errata has shaken out?
Yeah, so I've seen it in action a little bit through, of course, playtesting, but also kind of the current meta and through my Phoenix League games. And all it seems like all the changed cards are still really good, even better in some ways. But what I'm happy about is that the negativity surrounding them has seemed to be reduced a little bit, and there's excitement for them again. But yeah, Three-Eyed Owl has such a dang history with this game, and I hope I did it right this time.
Well, it depends on your definition of do it right, bud, because you did buff it. Like it I think it's arguable that you buffed it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's
Discards a card
so
without
cool. But
exhausting now.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said for that. And I think that, speaking to that negativity, I know that, being able to interact along that axis, and kind of interact with the hand and stuff, a lot of players really care about that. And so seeing Three-Eyed Owl chained, I think, was painful for a lot of people, not just because
Mm-hmm.
it's iconic, but because, it the problematic aspect of it was that it could catch players off guard in a way that just was a negative experience. But there was kind of a that archetype of like mill and hand control
Mm-hmm.
got caught in the crossfire. Like you didn't want to stop people from playing Ashes that way. You wanted to stop new players from having the promise of first five being taken away from them. And so to come back with a vengeance with Three-Eyed Owl and be like, hey, for all of you who loved that aspect of the game, Owl's even better now. We just stopped it from doing the thing that we felt violated this core principle. And now I, for one, look forward to our new feathered overlords. So,
I've been on the
I mean,
receiving end of them already, and they are fierce for sure.
they're awesome. It's really cool. And it's just really cool. We've anecdotally, I've seen players come back after being away from a long time because they're like, hey, Al's back, and this was the play style that I really resonated with. And I mean, that's
Yeah,
just
I
it's really
remember.
cool.
I remember that.
It seems like there's been a lot of positivity around this round of organized play changes, and that's really cool.
Yeah, and I'm just glad we had the opportunity to try it. And errata is a really high stakes way to control the game. I always say you have to nail it the first time because there's no way you're gonna get away with errataing a card a second time. It's just too messy with production and distribution and just communicating what the game is. It seems like it should be a really small thing, but it has just like a ripple effect where it's like, oh man, I gotta talk to the translators. We're working on it exists, a traditional Chinese version translation of the game, and like trying to catch them before they start printing stuff. Like, can you put these in the new set? Have you already printed these one yet? It's like, yes. So 3-Eyed Owl's gonna reprint, and then they have to get on board with like, okay, can we distribute these? So like, it's nuts how much just like changing your product like that affects things. But ultimately, like, it's for the people who enjoy the game. So
Yeah, I mean, it's such a dedicated community, and I think it's good for those of us who spend a lot of time really investing in it, and are playing in tournaments and stuff. I mean, it helps us feel seen, right? Like, we know that Plaid Hat is looking at these dedicated players who are putting time in, and they're going, "Hey, we're going to do something for you, so that you know that the tournament scene matters, and that like we care about what this game is doing at high level play." And there's a lot of ways that Plaid Hat can help out with that. And I mean, giving us the power to do errata is a huge step. Like, it's awesome to know that that's cared about at that level. And so I was really, really encouraged to know that we were going to get to do that. It was fun to test it. And I'm really pleased because like, it's such a huge announcement. I remember we were all trying to predict how the player base would receive it, and we just kind of didn't know, right?
yeah.
So to see all the love and positivity about it was really encouraging to me. So
Yeah. Hey, going over to chat, NIU Math, talking about the APC. This was a 1.0 tournament circuit that, I helped start with Austin Mills at the time. Traveling to a different state just to hang out, eat, play Ashes with awesome people was a top gaming memory for me. Totally. I loved those tournaments. And man, traveling to see people was really just a super special part of this game. And I mean, like basically all my friends right now have been like from Ashes in one way or another. It's just like it started at a really formative time in my life, and just the community's the best.
That's cool.
Flora asking how many birds should we expect to see this cycle? Basically unlimited. There's so many more birds we haven't done. And are there any in the natural deck? No, there's no birds in the next
no. set. I think you do get a glimmer in the art that's been spoiled, but there's more art that makes it more clear. But the Frostwild Scourge itself is actually winged.
All right.
And I can say that I have been the victim of some usage of those wings several times. So I don't think there's any birds per se in the natural set, but there are wings in the natural set.
You'll be facing one giant bird.
and they're freaking awful. So get ready for Wings of Doom. It's gonna be it's man, Frostwild Scourges. I think I am so excited for people to see what Red Rains can do when you stretch out beyond those first two aspects of Shadow and Fury. I was really happy that when it was time to do the next Chimera, you didn't just sit back and like do more of the same. Like, you really went for it with this set, and Scourge plays and feels so different than that first Chimera set did. And so I'm really excited for people to get a taste of that.
Yeah, kind of the design process of Chimera, now that we're a couple of them in, is like, okay, start with some new core concepts. So the Corpse of Veros, I think Lark described it as the Mario of Red Reigns, where it's just like your well-rounded, really simple fighter. It's like, okay, it's doing like just all the basics just to show you the system and see what works. So we used a lot of our elegant, simple ideas, carving out Corpse of Veros there. But then the next fighters all have to like have their thing. So yeah, the Frostwild Scourge is very alteration based, and we didn't know exactly what those alterations were going to do at the start, but it's like, okay, the original idea was one deck is going to use Vigor and the other deck is going to use Stun, and there's a little bit of cross between them now, but for the most part it was like, yeah, okay, we need to use alterations as a theme at whatever cost, so it feels like something different. And the Chimera coming after that is going to be bringing our first conjured aspect into the game, and it's really based around protecting that one thing and using it to ramp up stuff. So I won't say too much about that because it's still pretty early in development, but I'm really happy with it, and I just got the first art piece back for the third Chimera. So now I get to start fleshing it out as a character and doing all of its different attacks.
Yeah, it's been so much fun to see where Red Reigns is going. And one thing that Nick and I were talking about before this is as we were testing the Corpse of Veros, we were trying to make that Chimera, but we were also trying to make a system, right? Mm-hmm. And so the Chimera would kind of change with the system and all kind of grew together. Now the rules are locked in. And so we don't really have a moving target as far as how the actual game works anymore. And so it has made, it's just so much more fun to work on these Chimera now, because the rule system is fixed and you can just like throw cool ideas against the wall and see what sticks. And I see that you are making me bigger, and I didn't ask for that. So
you're bigger now.
No, man. All right. So Flora asking, are you able to tell us now if we should expect to see more than just the promised 3 Chimera in this cycle? Yeah, Nick, are you able to tell us now whether we're going to see more Chimera?
I'm not able to say that yet. I am doing a third one right now, but the reception has been really good. I want to do more than the 3, but it'll take a little bit of time to kind of see how the game mode does overall, sale wise and just kind of like product design wise in the future. But I think the early reception is good for more of it, but I won't commit to that. So expect 3 and we'll see.
Man, we finally got a lid on you. We've been able to get details out of you all night. Finally we got you to clam up. That's good.
Yeah. I have my preferences, but I ultimately don't make the call there. So it'll be kind of up to Colby if he thinks its product's worth continuing doing. If they're doing better than Ashes has ever done before, that's a really strong motivation for us to continue doing it if it really seems like people like it that way.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool is you found a way. I genuinely, maybe there's somebody out there, but I haven't heard them speak up saying that they feel that the player versus player game has suffered because of the distribution model for this cycle. Like, it doesn't feel like we lose much if you print another Chimera, because like we only got one deck with this most recent release, but these cards shook the meta up in such a huge way, plus the errata and things like that, I mean, I would say that the competitive scene couldn't feel farther away from being stagnant. And you might expect that if you were going to cut the output down a little bit to make room for this PvE. But the way that you've structured the new products, it's just not that way. Like player versus player, people are not losing a whole lot to see the PvE side happen.
Yeah, I'm really glad it's having that impact, and it's kind of a quality over quantity there. But Uh, what comes after we do these new Phoenixborn exclusive cards? I don't really know yet. We could go back to doing like the 2 decks at a time, or if we feel like we need to come up with like more thematic ways to do red rains, or like a different type of enemy using the red rain system. Like who knows what comes after that? That's like way beyond what I'm currently thinking. But I think it would be fun to do new Phoenixborn once we're done going through all these again. Because just making Phoenixborn is so fun, and I would really like to do another round of dual color decks. Just seeing how fun doing mono decks has been again is like really, really cool. And I've never had plans to do more dice types, and I really like just taking a new core concept and fleshing it out, and having that restriction to design a whole deck around and make it just like an engine unto itself has been really fun. So I think there's plenty more design space left for just kind of the traditional ways of creating decks.
Yeah, I think so too. It's been a whole new world getting to be part of being the test team and everything. And by the way, if you're an Ashes regular and you're listening, and you're curious about testing, just talk to Nick. Spots open up more often than you might think, and we could always use people who are enthusiastic about it. And so, I really, as someone who's like inside the curtain, it just feels like an extension of the regular Ashes community. Like we feel very much a part of what's going on, and it's a really tight knit little group. And it's just a really, really cool place to be. And so if that's ever something that appealed to you, reach out to Nick, and maybe there's a spot. So
Yeah, please do. I mean,
that's it's a really fun part. Yeah.
Testing volume is like something you can never have too much of. And yeah, the community, I don't know if there's anybody in the playtest group that isn't in the regular community. So yeah, it's really, really just more of the same, but we're working on bad cards instead of finished cards the whole time.
Carl asking, do you take inspiration from any of your favorite shows or IPs when designing? You've spoken about this a little bit before, but I'm interested to see if you give us some more detail with Carl asking.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of it happens on a subconscious level. Like I'm just like the aggregate of everything I've enjoyed at some point or another. But like when I do art direction, I guess is the area you would see the inspiration the most. And there's so many scenes from like Avatar The Last Airbender where I'm like, when I want to position a character in a way, I know that show inside and out. So if I want like a very specific thing that I've seen before, I know where I can go get it. So like I use those for poses a lot of times and expressions. It's a really expressive show, so that's a huge source of inspiration for me. But I look through a ton of anime references for art direction, because Ashes like really is an anime inspired game, even though it doesn't have an anime art style to it. Just kind of the characterization and style, and like Isaac is a big fan of anime, so I know the game just has roots in that. So I made sure to continue down that way as he was kind of briefing me on how art direction for Ashes has gone in the past, and just like what themes to look for. Anime came up as like a big one for that. So yeah, anime in general, the few anime that I've seen, especially Avatar being a big one. And like I was a huge Pokemon fan as a kid, so usually there's little bits and pieces of just like creature design being inspired by Pokemon design in there in some way. A lot of the Ashes conjurations are like a creature with a weird elemental or colorful quirk to them, so there's obviously a lot of characters to draw inspiration from there. So yeah, all my like playtest card arts are just like clip of Pokemon scene from Avatar. Like they're not fancy.
No, I was gonna say it was there's some elements where you don't want to see how the sausage is made. And I got curious once in the test group because Nick was talking about like filling out an art briefing for the artists, and I was like, "What do you give the artists? Like we get all this beautiful art for the game, and like you're the de facto art director. Like, what do you tell them?" And he's like, "Well, here, this is what I sent him," and he sent the art direction like briefing image for one of the cards that he was working on, and it was just like JPEGs of like Pokemon and like this scene from this and something like that, and then like this big huge blob of text of him just like giving his thoughts about the card, and it was like, I love you, but it was so like pedestrian,
Yeah.
and like it just totally brought the curtain down for me, and I was like, oh, this is how we get this beautiful art. Is it's just Nick waxing poetic about Avatar in a JPEG, and then you hand it to an artist. But what's really cool is I noticed it. I think it was for one of the Rowan pieces. It was for Discovery. The Rowan's card that he does to start his engine up.
Mm-hmm.
You showed me the art briefing for Discovery, and it was the way that you described, like you wanted the red raindrop in his hand to glow, and you wanted the hieroglyphs on the wall to kind of pop out and glow too. And so, like, as cobbled together as it looked, you really had a vision for it. And then when we got the art piece back, these incredible artists that we have just brought it to life. And it was really cool to get
that's
to
like my favorite piece I've done. I'm glad that's the one this story's about, because I love the way Discovery came out.
I loved it too. I mean, all of Rowan's key art, like the elephant, the red raindrops, like man, it was really really cool. There's a funny anecdote actually that I'll share as well. We're giving lots of like behind the scenes stuff tonight.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
I'm digging it.
I joined the playtest team before Chaos Theory joined the playtest team, and we were working on Rowan, and we were trying to figure out how he was going to like dig through the ruins. And we had this big, huge innovation that ended up not being kept at all. But I'm really good friends with Chaos Theory in real life. We've been friends for a long time, and I got so excited that I called him, and I couldn't break NDA. Like I couldn't like tell him things that he wasn't supposed to know, but I just couldn't stop thinking about this thing that we had just worked on. And so I was telling him a little bit about it, and he was just like, yeah, that sounds really cool. And then before I knew it, he had like DM'd Nick, and he was like, I have to help. Like it was just so, he was just so excited about what was going on, because it was so exciting. And so me telling him about like the early days of Rowan is what made him go, screw it, I got to get in here.
Yeah.
And so that was really really fun. Another one of my favorite things that happened was when we started working on Red Rains mode. I had been friends with Schmendrix for a long time. We had both played a lot of Marvel Champions, and we were kind of light on people with tons of experience in that. And so I asked him if he would come on, and then he took a look at some Red Rain stuff for us. And so it's like, it's cool who came in where, and it's so fun to be a part of that little group. And so if you ever want to join up, it's really cool.
Yeah, I really remember that Rowan cycle of playtesting. That was probably like the most stubborn I've ever been in playtesting, where I'm just like, he has to be digging for these stinking things. And that I was getting a lot of pushback where it's like, it's too slow, it's not gonna work. Like the ally thing is cool, can we just like do more of the ally stuff? And I'm like, no. I need him to do this stupid mini game. But I'm glad we stuck with it, because that's I think in my top 3 Phoenixborn, I like Jessa, Rowan, and Auric the most. Their designs are just really fun for me to play.
Auric is also really high up for me. He's like, a lot of people don't know this, but he's like my second favorite behind Xander. And so Red Rains has been really special for me, because he's finally he's finally just really really solid. And so, although I will say I'm in the middle of a heroic campaign. My buddy's playing Echo and I'm playing Auric, and we're about to head into the last game, and I think I'm ditching concentration. I just can't.
Sure.
find the rune play. And like, I'm thinking about going up against this 7 threat Chimera, and it's just like, man, I don't know if I've got time to try to awaken. Like, I just want more bodies, man. So, yeah, it's interesting how ruthless you have to get with your deck building choices in the heroic campaign.
Yeah, 7 threat is a ton to manage, but it's totally possible. And that what I really like about the upper end of heroic difficulty is how that to some degree you have to feel like you're exploiting the systems of the game to stand a chance, but it really pushes
Yeah.
you to be creative with the card pool and kind of figure out the game mode in a new way. I think I was talking on the Jankyard the other day. I was talking about my Gorn Rock Brawler game in Red Rain's playtesting. It was like just refreshed this thing so many times, and it was 6 alterations or whatever attached to it. Where I'm like, you could never do this. You could never do this
No,
in PvP.
you were streaming that game within the playtest server, like for people to like watch, and I hadn't been tuning in, but I just popped into the game, and so I see your TTS board, and it's just this Gordon Rock Brawler stacked about this high with stuff, and I was like, what's going on in here? What are you doing? Sometimes you pop into these playtest streams and you're like, Nick, you okay over there? Like, you good, bro? So,
It was awesome. It was the best game of Red Rains I've ever played.
so Fosmonaut is saying, so I like PvE games where they're so hard, you need to construct a deck with the specific game in mind. Is there any plan to have this kind of play for future Red Rain sets? That's a really good question.
Yeah. I think it's not going to be the direct goal, because I want every product to be like something people can play with what they have and get it done. Because having a collection big enough to have that demand is kind of a specialty, but being able to crank up the difficulty to the really high levels is one way you can do that with a pre-constructed deck. But also, as we start adding more aspects to the game, we're bound to get some overlap where it's like when you build this custom Chimera, it could have certain qualities like none of the one blood aspects have 1 life, so your ping damage isn't going to pick up any kills. That could be really tough. So yeah, the design of the 3rd Chimera right now has this 1 life conjuration that keeps coming back in a lot of different ways. So that design alone is kind of stepping into what you're talking about right now, where it's like, if you don't have access to quick damage, this thing's going to be a lot harder than if you do have it. So I don't want to go so far that it like shoehorns you into a specific area really, really hard. But I think as we take these core concepts and design entire chimeras around it, we kind of organically get these different textures where it's like, this chimera is asking this question to you. How do you want to do that? And I think that gives us a lot of replayability in the campaign mode, where you might build a Phoenixborn this one way, where it's like, oh, I take Saria, and then from there I really like to grab this one just because it's like such a good pair for her, like generically. But if you're going up against,
but then that combo
this
doesn't work with this new Chimera. Yeah,
just like, oh man, I better go look for ping damage. I usually don't grab ping damage, but if I don't have it going into the next fight, like, what am I gonna do? I need it. So it could start informing your campaign paths a little bit differently is probably what we're looking for.
Yeah. Fosmonaut, I'm a veteran of Arkham Horror. Nick dove into Arkham Horror recently, and he's been really enjoying that.
I love to talk about Arkham Horror.
And then I played a lot of Marvel Champions, and then I dove a little bit into Lord of the Rings LCG. And Lord of the Rings, who in particular, I don't know if you know this, I don't know if you ever played Lord of the Rings, Nick, but like, you almost have to build your deck specific to the scenario in that game. Because the tech is so specific, and if you don't have answers to certain things, they're just incredibly punishing. And so that was the kind of game where you almost had to deck build specifically for the scenario. And so, as Nick was saying, that's not really the case with Scourge so far. Like, a lot of my decks that were successful against Corpse of Heroes have been pretty successful against Scourge, but there's
Mhm.
also certain things that are really reliable against Corpse that Scourge just has some real tools against. Like the first thing that comes to mind for me is like big alert units. Those are pretty reliable against Corpse. Like you're going to get
Mhm.
good value out of that. But there are some things that Scourge can do that just makes that plan of going tall really dicey. And so I think
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting for people to see the different textures and like what the different chimera are strong against and weak against. Yeah.
Yeah, like the Frostwild Scourge. So it's kind of defined by those alterations, but also it has this like left and right dichotomy to it where it's got the sword in its right hand and a big fist as its left hand. So kind of thematically, we have the left and right claw icons on those cards being like, oh, when it attacks something to the right, it's doing a sword attack, and it will do something thematically with the sword. And then there's like a crushing grip is one of the aspects where it will be just exhausting your leftmost unit at all times until you handle it. So um, that's kind of the theme of it. Like it's grabbing your unit and holding it down so you
Got
can't
to
use
grab.
it.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really tough for the alert units if you just like you're exhausted. And those big units, they always clump up on the left as things go forward with battle. So
Yeah. You always add
yeah,
units
it's
to the
cool.
right. Yeah. So speaking of different aspects, I have kind of a fun one for you. Which aspect from the Shadow or Fury decks does Nick hate the most?
Oh man.
Who's made you the most upset?
Ooh, let's see. Okay. I struggle against iron scales quite a bit. That's another one of those cards that's asking you for a specific answer, and if you don't have it, it just beats you up pretty good. Um,
There's nothing like sometimes you're in a position where the iron scales flips and you're like, oh no, that's gonna take so much of my attention for me this round. I like and you start automatically having to like structure your entire round about like how do I deal with iron scales without completely ruining the rest of my plan? And so you're already there, right? Then the second iron scales flips and
yeah.
you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah, I think your
yeah.
best
Or
bet is Ice Trap. But other than that, it's like this is going to take 2 actions minimum to figure out. And
and some of those
that's tough.
actions may not be efficient. Yeah.
Hmm.
Flora says so hard to efficiently kill it, and it really, really is. Carl says, do you plan on retroactively adding positioning to PvP? So in PvE, there's a standing rule that when you put cards into play, they go to the right. Like it's locked in that you have to do that. They go to the right of cards that were there before. But for the moment, that doesn't exist in regular PvP Ashes. And so it's an interesting question, I think, to think about whether positioning will come into play on the competitive side of the game.
Yeah, I think it would have been something interesting to add in at the start of Reborn. At this point, I don't think it's a good idea to add it into the core rules just because having different rule books out there is weird, and it would only matter for like designs going forward if we wanted to incorporate that in. But there's definitely a lot of texture that can come from it. But the reason it's in PvE is basically to add differentiating AI choices for the Chimera. So it really was born out of necessity for the design, not so much as like something that's needed for PvP, but could have cool design space. It is essential to PvE operating. And there was a time where we didn't have those, and it was where we were like, okay, yeah, this is like cool. It doesn't feel like Ashes though, because like different things aren't happening. It's just kind of attacking in the same way. But Ashes is all about like those different choices going at a time. So the targeting system really kind of brought that feeling alive. So yeah, won't be adding
Yeah.
that in, I don't think.
It's such a cool thing to think about, though, Carl, because it adds so much interesting texture to the PvE games that it does kind of make you wish that we had kind of had that from the beginning. I totally see where you're coming from there. Hale coming in. Hale, it has been a really cool new player, so it's cool to see you in chat. Saying that Law of Domination is also good against Iron Scales. They found that out by complete accident, is what they say. I actually had never thought of Law of Domination,
Oh.
but Law of Domination
Oh, because it
has
stops
that effect where you
damage from
can't.
being prevented.
Yeah, you can't prevent damage. Yeah, normally you're like, huh.
Oh,
Yeah, I never thought about that. So, yeah.
gamer
Well, and you know,
play.
Xander also has Nature's Wrath and Pain Shaman. So like Xander just really whoops up on Iron Scales. I
Oh
never thought
yeah.
about that.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's a really cool
Good
combo
find.
there. So,
Yeah, that's a
well,
good
Nick, I don't
example.
know. Good example of
Oh,
like
just
a
like
card like.
those like weird cards you're like, "Oh, I haven't used this one in a really long time." Just like randomly has a really cool application in the mode just because you're playing a precon.
Yeah. Well, Nick, I don't know how we should wrap this up, or if we should, or anything like that. I just know if we
Yeah, I
keep
think now's
talking.
probably a good time
Yeah,
to
we're gonna blow through all of our cool stories and potential spoilers. I know that I'll be back at least some this week, and so we we gotta save some stuff for the people for the sake of the show.
totally.
So yeah,
Well,
cool. Well, congrats again to Brian B. Nick, is this AshCon set up to where the winners of the stream game get prizes?
yes, yes. So we'll be contacting
Awesome.
Brian for some prizes. And if you want to play a feature match, you can sign up on the pinned link in the PHG Tournaments Discord channel. Just drop your game in if you want to play at 9 p.m. Eastern. Hop on here, get a chance to win some alt arts, and yeah, just hang out, show your game.
Great. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll be hearing from Plaid Hat's attorneys later in the evening, and we'll just carry on throughout our night. So, Nick, thank you so much for having me on. I look forward to being on as we can this week. You can have me on every night if you want. This has been a ton of fun.
Well,
And
I should be thanking
please,
you. You're
no,
a true
please,
steward of the community, so thank you so much. I mean, Phoenix
thank you so
League and
much.
all these events and playtesting, like you are just on the front lines with everything. So thank you so much.
I love this game. I really, really do. I am going to hold you to this Red Reigns game, though. I really, really want to
Yes.
do that with you. So I hope that we get that started later this week. First of all, you and I are just a dominant team, and I just want the people to see what it's like to really whoop up on this Chimera. I mean, we gotta, we gotta show them how the pros do it, man. So
Post
that's
in
gonna
the
be really fun.
Discord what precons you want to make us play.
Oh, I didn't bargain for that. Oh no. Oh, that's a really good one actually. Yeah, that is fun. They're going to murder us, Nick.
Ooh, if you want to do 3 games, we could do like a 3-night campaign. Start it off,
Oh,
play a few games.
oh, book it. Book it. We'll do it. Book it. Let's do it. I got nothing to do. Flora says Nick plays Xander and Jason plays Jesse. You shut your mouth, Flora.
Oh
Stop it.
man, you're playing on hard mode. Chess is so
Stop it.
hard to win with.
Yeah, don't do that to me, man. I thought we were friends. Oh gosh, this was our teammate in the team tournament, and she's trying to, man, Flora,
Throwing us
you're
under the
dirty.
bus.
Telling you. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. The viewership really stayed too. Thanks everybody for
Yeah, thanks
sticking
for
around.
hanging out,
See you.
everyone.
We'll see you tomorrow night. We'll get some Red Reigns games in at some point this week, and I don't know, man. It's going to be a great week. I love AshCon week, so thanks again to Plaid Hat for putting it on and for having me on the stream. And it's going to be a great week.
Of course. Thanks so much. We'll see y'all later.
All right. Good night, Nick.
Good night.